And welcome back, everyone, to Mizzou Hockey TV. My name's Luca Vitale. Joining me today is former center and Mizzou Hockey Board President, Holden Carroll. Holden, what's going on?
Not much, man. Just hanging out, enjoying the holidays. Just have some time to myself today. So got to skate in earlier this morning with another alumni, Sean Carrier, Yeti. I think he was on the show earlier this week. So saw him today. Skated with my dad a little bit, and Nick Spolec as well. So yeah, just a casual day after the holidays. So how about yourself?
I'm pretty good. It's good to hear that the crew is all together. Two of you now alum and Nick Spolec about to be graduating in May. So always good to hear that the club's still back together. Crew's still together. So that's awesome to hear. So first things first, what I like to do on the show is whether you're still on the team or like yourself, graduated and just doing your own thing in the world now, just sort of talk to us. Who are you exactly? And what are you up to these days?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, Holden Carroll. I played for 4.5 years at Mizzou. Started in 2018, graduated in 2020, December 2020. So I spent a decent amount of time at the school with the program. And then I grew up playing hockey in Kansas City. I started when I was about 10 or 11 years old at Line Creek. And then mentioning Nick again, he's kind of my best buddy growing up. So he got me into playing hockey. So that's kind of where the whole hockey journey started, was with current president Nick Spolec. So yeah, kind of grew up playing in KC, doing various other sports as well, but hockey kind of stuck with me. And then traveled to Mizzou. My dad was a Mizzou guy, so grew up a Mizzou fan through and through. So ended up attending Mizzou, playing hockey there, and now I'm graduated and working a real job, I guess, and just kind of doing everyday life now. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Where are you at exactly in the real world?
So I graduated mechanical engineering. So I'm working at Kiewit. They're a construction engineering firm here, they're based in Omaha, but we've got a regional headquarters here in Kansas City. And so I'm living on the Kansas side of Kansas City in Lenexa, just a little bit by their office here. So yep, just working here, doing some engineering. So.
So let's sort of discuss your impact on this organization. For those that do not know, Holden Carroll actually was a former board president of this organization. And Holden, unfortunately for you, you graduated December of 2022, so you didn't get to really experience part two of last year's ride for the appearance for the national championship. However, you have unfortunately now, my second favorite jersey right behind you. The gold ones are now number one for me personally. But if you may or may not remember, August of 2022, I actually interviewed you in front of the columns, and I asked you, because you were entering your fifth season and final season last year, and I asked you, how has the organization sort of changed throughout your tenure? And here's what you had to say to that.
Freshman year, I didn't even play. In the fall, I joined the program in the spring, and we had 13 guys rostered, and we went down to Missouri State, and we got whooped. We got whooped pretty bad, and that was kind of the standard at that time for the club, and so it was really hard. And then the following years, each year has just gotten better. It's just been great to see the progress, and I think last year was really a big turning point for us. So yeah, that's just kind of how it's gone, and I think that's why this year is so anticipated and everybody's ready to get started.
So it seems like a while ago that you said that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and even at December, you guys were 6-6-1 after you departed, and as you mentioned, 15-0 against Missouri State. Well, guess what? That didn't happen this past December against Missouri State, or yeah, it was December, the first weekend of December. And let's just sort of discuss this just a little bit. And what made you believe that you guys can get to the promised land after really experiencing those rough times and getting to experience the good times?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think just kind of touching back real quick on the progression of the club and just kind of seeing it to evolve to where it is now. We definitely had to go through those tough times. And I think really, I think the club was kind of looking for like a little bit of an identity. And I think it's important to remember where the club has come from. So I think transitioning these last few years into it's really become a powerhouse now, in especially the Division III rankings. I think it's important knowing that where we came from, we had to go through the hardships, and then getting to that, as you said, the promised land was super important. Having some of those guys around, even last year, like the Castons, they saw what it was. They saw that the club has been in a bad spot before, and I think it's important to have that leadership and just knowing that these opportunities don't come around, every day, every year. So I think everybody just worked really hard, gave all they could, and that's what led them to, after I departed. I wish I could have been a part of it, but led them to the national run and everything they accomplished.
Yeah, and you can argue also that you were a pioneer sort of changing the trajectory of this organization. And you mentioned how you and Nick Spolec are still really good friends. And well, as for those that do not know, he is now the current board president of Mizzou Hockey. And Holden, it almost seems like that you set a new standard and you really just changed the trajectory of this organization. And Nick even said that you belong in the Mount Rushmore of this organization. Can you just sort of talk to us? Did you envision this sort of what it looks like right now, the organization? Did you sort of envision a long-term plan, or did you set a standard? Can you sort of just talk to us about that?
I think first off, I think it's really, obviously I'm appreciative of what Nick said and those comments as well. But I think I want to go back to even the boards before me. Some former presidents, vice presidents, guys like Vito Brown, Drew Rushton, Billy Hendel, all those guys that were Colin Kelsey, Clayton Lieberman, all those guys that were on the boards before me. Even if the club was in kind of a bad spot. Performance wise, we didn't have the numbers that we needed really to compete at the level we wanted to compete at. Those guys still, kind of kept the boat afloat. So that's super important, and I don't think that we would be where we are today without those guys. And then they let me, I had the privilege of coming in after the work that they did to kind of take the next step. And I think, like I said before, establish some sort of an identity. And that's just accountability, hard work, people showing up, and really like a positive, you can call it a work environment. I think that the camaraderie of the team is something that was huge, and I just wanted to establish a precedent that everybody's, kind of family. Everybody should get along. Everybody should have fun showing up at the rink, and that's really, I feel like, what I brought was trying to bring the group closer. And I think that's something that's huge on every winning team. So that's the precedent that I wanted to set. And obviously, I think there is a long-term goal of being a top team in the nation every year. And I think that just starts with those small steps that we kind of try to put in place, and me and the current, or the former assistant president, whenever I was there, Austin Gast, he was good in that too. So, it's not all just me, but yeah, we just wanted to put the precedent forward that everybody is kind of a family. And I think that it just takes off from there.
Does it make me old that I know basically about all of those names that you just gave me in that answer of yours?
Yeah, it makes me feel old that I can rattle off all those names too. So
Yeah, that's something. But I mean, that's awesome just to hear in general. But you mentioned in that soundbite, 13 players were on the ice on one of those teams. Can you just sort of talk to us? What was that like?
Yeah. So I think at first it throws you off guard a little bit, because I don't think that even playing youth hockey, I've ever had that many guys, that few of guys show up for games. And, I'll just go back to kind of how I even got onto the team at that point. Was I was playing men's league in Jeff City, and Drew Rushton, he was on the board at that time. He was a junior, I believe, that year. He was reffing my men's league game, and this was, I don't know, into the fall semester, and I hadn't played yet. And he came up to me and was like, "Hey, like we need some guys. We play for the club hockey team here." And I knew there was a club hockey team, but so he kind of convinced me to come play. And so when I showed up, it was myself and two other Kansas City guys that joined at the same time, Colin Jones and Ian Jones. Those are good friends of mine as well. So we all three joined the team, and then that was like the 13th and 14th guy that was on the squad. So there was a lot of ice time, which is also, it's fun, but when you want to compete, it's tough to have 13 guys that everybody gets tired. Sometimes there's matchups that you don't get as well. Having 13 guys, you have to play straight up, all the time. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but it was a fun experience at the same time. So.
Yeah, it had to be an experience for sure, nevertheless. But I do want to say you're going to obviously go down in history as an influential president, but you also went down in history in another aspect, and that's the all-time shot blocker on Mizzou Hockey, 267 to be exact. Can you sort of just talk to us? What's the significance of just blocking shots? Are you trying to mentor some of these guys currently on the team? Because some of them, like Andrew Cassiopo, is very good at blocking shots defensively.
Yeah. I don't think I need to mentor any of these guys in the shot blocking department. I think that they're more than capable of stepping up and protecting the house, kind of. And I know Cap really well. He's one of my best friends, so it's good to hear that he's kind of taken up that role as well. And I've heard Eli Baumstark is pretty good in that department. So I don't know. Shot blocking is just one of those things that I guess just came naturally. I don't know. I was in the right spaces at the right time, kind of getting in the way. You want to help out your goaltender as much as you can. So kind of take the load off of them. And I think that, it's one of those things that maybe I don't see myself as a top scorer on the team. I never have been, never was. So you find other ways to contribute. And I think that's kind of, something that I wanted to contribute on was blocking shots, killing penalties, that kind of thing. So I think it's important. And, and I think when guys get fired up about it too, it just brings the team closer, and everybody wants to sacrifice bodies for winning games. So yeah, it's just important.
Yeah, you mentioned it's at the end of the day, it's not always just about scoring, but it's about winning games. And this team has definitely done that. You did it yourself last year when you got to spend that half a season on the team. But I will say is you've been back to the Washington Park Ice Arena a couple times this season. And as you've noticed, there's been a couple of new players on this team like Andrew Knapp, Grant Bader, and so on and so forth, and second-year player and Charlie Walker. Is there any player, whether they're new or returning, that have really caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, everybody that you just mentioned for sure. Andrew Knapp, I think everybody knows what kind of player he is. I don't know him very well, but I know that guys really love him, and he contributes a lot on the ice, and he's fun to watch. I enjoy watching guys like that. Somebody I think that's really caught my eye is he's wearing the new number 9, Aaron Hemmer. I think he's been a huge acquisition to the team, and I think he's really leading, from a young standpoint there. He's a young guy, so I think it's really nice to see him stepping up, scoring some huge goals, a lot of goals. So he's really impressive to watch. And then, like you said, Charlie Walker, I think everybody knew what kind of a goal scorer he could be, and I don't think that necessarily last year he got off to the start that he wanted to, and maybe was playing a little farther down in the lineup than he wanted to. But I think it was just a matter of time for him, and obviously it's panned out extremely well for him this year. So I got to play with him in the summer for a couple days, doing a little 3-on-3 tournament in St. Louis. So and he was just motoring around, scoring all kinds of goals. So yeah, he's definitely a big time player. So it's fun to see.
I'm sure that did something because back-to-back Hatties in the first half of the season. So that's not too bad after all.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I'm sure you heard about it, that Mizzou is going to D2 next season. And as you know, because you did it yourself, you try to grow this program. And sure enough, Nick Spolec has done the exact same thing in more the youth development sort of aspect with these DHI roofing events that he did back in October. And we've seen it via social media and what it's been able to do. And what I will say is, I'm assuming you were on the D2 team at some point in your tenure, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My first year we were D2. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So going back now to D2, Gold Division to be specifically, can you just sort of talk about what's the significance for going back to D2 for a growing program like Mizzou?
Oh, it's huge. And I think, like you said, I'll touch on Spoles and the outreach and stuff like that. And I think it's just huge, growing the game kind of around the city, around Columbia, around Jeff City. And then making the jump to D2, it just shows how much the program is growing in itself, the fan interaction, and then on the ice, the performance. I mean, they're growing in all aspects of the club. But being back to Division II after being, essentially demoted to Division III, 4 years ago now, you never want to move down in divisions. That's not progression at all for the club. But to bounce back so quickly, I mean, I don't know any other programs that would move down and jump back up as quick as we did. So it's huge, and it just shows that the on ice performance is paying off, and they deserve to be in Division II to fight with those teams like Illinois, SIUE, all those former teams that we had good rivalries with when we were in Division II, and we were a Division II team for a long time. So, but I don't think Division II is the stop that they want to be at anyways. I think it's just a stepping stone to the Division I level. So it's definitely a lot of progression shown for sure, and it's exciting. Everybody should be excited about it. I know I'm excited to watch them. So.
Yeah, definitely some new rivalries not new rivalries, but rather rivalries to be renewed.
Yeah.
I think U of I is the one that I'm going to be really interested in with bragging rights, just like any other Mizzou athletics sort of rivalry. So that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
So to sort of just go in a different direction now to sort of end this episode is to just sort of talk about you and sort of your favorite memories at Mizzou, just at the hockey team. So can you just sort of talk to us? What is your favorite Mizzou hockey memory?
Favorite Mizzou hockey memory. It's got to be the return of Kansas to Washington Park Ice Arena, and that win. It was just huge for the program at the time with everything going on and the little bit of controversy surrounding the game that should have been played in Kansas City that it unfortunately didn't get to be played that year in Kansas City. But I think it was also fortunate that we got to host the game at Washington Park Ice Arena, and there was a lot of communication going on with Kansas, University of Kansas, and their team, and the way it worked out, and it was just fantastic to host that game essentially, at home, in our home, and have our fans there. Just a huge game, and it was an emotional game for everybody, I think, just because of the team that they historically had been, and the team that we historically had been up until that time for the period of time I was there. It's not a team that we usually were beating while I was in school. So to beat them the way we did at home, all the fans, just packed house. I mean, you couldn't hear yourself think because the crowd was so loud at times. It was just fantastic. So that's got to be my favorite memory. And then just on top of that, all the time with, your best friends and stuff. So seeing those guys every day, skating with them, hanging out at the house, going to class together, I miss all that stuff too. So.
Yeah, I mean, that Kansas rivalry is always great to see. And end of February, that will be renewed in Cable Dahmer. So that's always going to be fun to watch, like it always is. Last year, if you're a Mizzou fan, that was fantastic to watch. If you were a Kansas fan, that was probably your worst nightmare come true.
Yeah.
But this year, Kansas is in the rankings. They're actually in the top 25. This is the second straight ranking. They've been in top 25. I'm not sure what's exactly changed within that program, but they're a very good team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. I kind of saw, I've seen a few stats and stuff like that from their team, and it's not a team to take lightly. Obviously, they've got some guys that can score goals. So it looked like they were on the downslope there pretty heavily, and they've kind of jumped back up. So I mean, it's a huge rival, as everybody knows. Missouri and Kansas, they don't like each other, and they're never going to like each other. But you have to show respect, and I think that they're back on the come up. So you have to take them seriously, and I think it's going to be a fun game. I'm going to be there watching. So, and I know that there's going to be a number of other alumni there. So it'll be a good time. I can't wait for that game.
And another question, I liked Sean's answer from last week. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. We'll see what happens here. What was your least favorite place to play?
Least favorite place to. I'll say my least favorite place to go. This isn't really a knock. I didn't care for going to Dordt, Iowa to play games, but my least favorite barn to play in was probably in Springfield playing Missouri State. I mean, it was just chaos every week. Every weekend we were there. I mean, their fans are so loud. It's a great environment to play in, but it's tough. It's tough going to that barn, and having to, work hard in front of those opposing fans. They don't give you any breaks. So what did he say? I'm curious.
Springdale, so Arkansas.
Springdale, Arkansas. Yeah. Also another tough building to play in. They really pack the house, and they have some dedicated fans, and that's a big time program as well. So I think that's a great answer. I would agree with that too anytime. So.
And last question, where it all began, sort of, why did you start playing hockey?
Why did I start playing hockey? Kind of going back on what I said at the very beginning with Nick, and I mean, I grew up a street over from Nick Spolec. We went to elementary school, middle school, high school together, and he's been my best friend, all through the years. So he started playing hockey, and his dad's a big hockey guy too, and his family kind of encouraged me to jump into it. A couple of years after he did, just to best friends, do something together, and it's been the best decision of my life, and it's something that's affected my life every single day is hockey, and still being involved with Nick to this age in hockey is something you couldn't dream of as a kid, playing with your best friend all the time. So it's Nick for sure. So.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for Mizzou Hockey TV today. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and be sure to check out our website. Holden, thanks for joining us today. My name's Luca Vitale, and we'll see you next time.